Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another Flea Market Finds episode. This is actually a continuation of the October 21st pick that I went on to buy some machinist tools at a person's house. And after I wrapped up buying the machinist tools, I ended up looking through some drawers and stuff that she had other stuff for sale and put together another lot and dropped another $100 on all of this stuff here. So I'm going to take this off the bench real quick and make some room so we can go through these items one at a time. So then I kind of looked around and I noticed the room that we were standing in, there were a bunch of shelves, and on the shelves there were all kinds of old tools displayed, and I asked if any of the other stuff was for sale, and she said yeah. So I was looking around and I spotted this. Caught my eye. It's a neat old tap drill sizes drill index. So this would have just sat on your workbench and you would have all your number size drill bits in there for different taps. This one is marked Alemite Die Casting and Manufacturing Division, Woodstock, Illinois, USA. I've never seen one like this before. I'm not sure what this material is. It's almost like a Bakelite or something. Actually, it might be just cast metal and painted black. So I said, well, would you be interested in selling that? And she said, sure. I said, well, what do you want for it? She said $10. I said, sold. And then I spotted this one. And this is another version of a drill index. Okay, this is by the Ajax company, made in the USA, and there's supposed to be a pin that goes in here and locks this, and then it becomes a little triangle shaped ditty for your workbench, or you can fold it down like that, I guess, and put it in a drawer or whatever. I don't know. I thought that was kind of neat also. So I said, well, I'd take $10 for that one. She said, sure. So I got that one for $10 too. Then I started looking even further on those shelves, and then I saw a Craftsman toolbox, not a machinist toolbox, just a mechanic's toolbox. And I said, are there any tools in there for sale? She said, oh, there's all kinds of stuff in there. So I started to go through those, and that led to me buying a whole nother group of stuff. These are early valve lapping tools. So if you've ever lapped valves on an engine before, the process is that you use a valve lapping compound, which is like a slurry, and you have the valve spring off, and you put the slurry on the valve seat, and you drop the valve in, and then you spin the valve back and forth vigorously, and what it does is it laps those two surfaces together and gives you a really nice smooth surface to make a really good seal. So the modern valve lapping tool that you can buy at like the auto parts store now is basically just a plastic stick with suction cups on it, and you stick the suction cup on the top of the tool and you basically just do this. You kind of do a Mr. Miyagi type thing and get that going like that, and that's a little bit of a pain in the butt, but they work. I've used them before. But in the old days they were smart enough to do things like on the tops of the valves they would put either a slot, so almost like a screwdriver blade could go in there, or a couple of little indentations, holes that didn't go all the way through the valve obviously, but just were deep enough so that you could engage a tool like this. So I think she said that a lot of these tools came out of a collection a guy had who did a lot of like Model A Fords or Model Ts or something, so I'm not sure. There were even a couple of just random valves in the drawer there that actually this would fit into. So the interesting thing about this one to me is that this is actually a Blue Point tool. So what's cool about this thing is the fact that you've got a mechanism inside here, and what it does is it allows you to crank this crank, and yet it still gives you that Mr. Miyagi back and forth action. So I don't know how well you can see that, how well it's showing up, but it's actually going back and forth. So I thought that was pretty cool. Turns out these aren't overly valuable. They're not like big money. Plenty of them trade on eBay. So I got that one, and then I got this one. This is a different company. This one is a Goodell Pratt Toolsmiths, Greenfield, Mass. Now this one's got a patent date on it, July 7th, 1914. This one, I did see one of these sell on eBay for like 50 bucks, but it had the original box with it. And again, I'm cranking in just one direction, but there's a mechanism in here that's turning that into a back and forth deal, so it can lap that valve. So pretty cool. I don't know, I think so. But I mean, I took some chances here for sure, because, you know, 100 bucks, and like I said, those valve lapping tools, they might only be worth like 25 a piece. This is the Telescopic Goblet for the vest pocket. It's got a W in the middle. And what this is this is a little, you unscrew this like this, open the can up, and expand this like this, and this actually seals enough and gives you a little portable goblet. So like for picnicking or whatever, okay? Thought that was pretty neat. They still make these. I don't know whether or not this one's got any additional value because it's a little bit vintage or not, but I kind of think that this is only going to be worth like $5, so I think I overvalued this. And actually there's a name on here. Well, this says warranted pure white metal. So I don't know what that company's all about. So yeah, a whole bunch of antique wrenches. A lot of like wrenches out of old Ford toolboxes and stuff. These caught my eye. I like these smaller ones because oftentimes these end up being bicycle wrenches. This one is a Wakefield wrench made in Worcester, Mass. So that was made right in the city that's only 20 minutes north of me, so I definitely wanted that one. And then this one, I just like the look of it and the shape. And this is the Billings and Spencer Company of Hartford, Connecticut. So Billings and Spencer Company of Hartford, Connecticut. Kind of a neat one. It's in great shape. There's another look at that Wakefield wrench, which there is a town called Wakefield in Massachusetts, oddly enough, but it's nowhere near Worcester. Next up is another item I had no idea what to value it at, so I was, you know, glad that we were able to lump all this together, because this, well, it's a clock, right? But the thing is, it's a clock that clearly appears to have been made to be an automotive clock on a dashboard. It's got this slant to the back of it, so that this would have been mounted on a dashboard. It actually says Savannah 8 days. So it came with a key, and there's a little C-clip right here. Somebody scotch taped to the back, so that must be part of this somehow. So the weird thing is, I'm seeing this plate right here. Yeah, so there's like, you can see threads sticking out right here. It's almost like there's a screw that screws from the front through this plate, and that screw is what's keeping this from being able to swing out and be unclipped from this lower part where it goes behind this clip right here. Alright, so I'm wondering whether or not the head of this screw is hidden under this piece. So maybe this piece does come off separately. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh, it just unscrews. All right. That was easy enough. So there's a shaft with a strange end on it, a triangular shaped end, and I think the idea is you unscrew that and that will back this out and allow this to be removed from the dashboard of the car so that this bracket would stay on the car. And I'm thinking that this is not the original key. I saw a photograph of one of these that sold on a website, and there was a picture of the key, and the key looked unusual. And I'm thinking what probably was going on there was that the original key probably was two-sided, and it had this side for winding, and then it probably had a triangular side for unscrewing this. It's just a theory. So just for the heck of it, I want to see if this will wind. All right, well, apparently that's got some kind of an issue. Because as soon as you wind it, time flies. Tempus fugit. I think that's Latin for time flies. I don't know. So I don't know a lot about clocks, but I know that this is probably a problem with the escape wheel mechanism, I believe is what it's called. So I don't know if that's anything I even want to remotely get involved with. I'm thinking I might want to just sell this as is. But now with the dial off, with the glass bezel off, I can clearly see that it's marked right here, made by the New Haven Clock Company of New Haven, Connecticut, USA. So cool beans. Oh, so this is what I believe the original New Haven key looked sort of like. This is a reproduction one somebody sells on eBay for $10. They're saying it's for the 6/3 size key, so 6/3. So I'm assuming that means 6 on one side and 3 on the other, which whatever those numbers mean. So I could get one of these. Problem is, I don't know if that's the right one or not, because the very next listing down shows a guy selling 4. You can clearly see in this photo that he's got a couple of keys that are double-ended over here. Well, that says Sessions. Here's yet another one, genuine New Haven clock. I wondered whether or not this little jeweler's nut driver set that I have had something that might be able to fit. And sure enough, this one fits perfectly on there. Just turn it just right. It slides right on. But that is... There we go. It's pretty tight. Alright. Well, getting into trouble. I shouldn't let that stop me. I decided these 4 screws right here appear to be the ones that hold it in, and they do. So figured I'm going to want to take this out for photographic purposes anyways. So now we got the whole movement here. Actually, there's the escape wheel right there. So there's a little wheel right here that by design looks like it can rock back and forth. And there's a spring, coil spring behind it, or clock spring behind it that would allow it to do this kind of action here. There's a pin sticking out on it. There's an arm right here that looks like by design is supposed to be engaged by that pin, and instead it's just floating out here on its own. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see whether or not I can get that arm over the pin like I think it's supposed to be, because the end of the arm's got like a fork shape to it, as if like it's supposed to hold that pin captive, so that when this rocks back and forth, that arm does this kind of an action here on this other wheel, which looks like the escapement wheel. Alright, it looks like I got that arm back in the position it's supposed to be in. So now when this rocks, that little lever's moving back and forth like I think it should. Now let's see what happens when I wind it. I think what's going on here is I think on this other arm that there's supposed to be a couple of pins that engage that escape wheel, and I think they're broken off. So this is not something I'm going to be able to repair because, well, I'm not a clock guy. Oh well. Let's move on to some of the other items. These next two items are unusual. Let's start with the easy one first. This one is a Champion brand number FT-2 firing indicators. And what this is I think this is a spark tester. I think this is to check for spark on your ignition system. So there's a cap you can unscrew here, and that exposes a very sharp little tip. I think by design that is so you can probe into the insulation on your spark plug wire. I would think isn't a good idea to make holes in your spark plug wire, but I think that's how it worked. And then I think this little cartridge in here is supposed to light up when there's spark. I don't actually know. So this unscrews, exposes a wire. Yeah, and then that comes out like that. It's dark and rainy out right now, so I can't check this thing on a ignition system. It's so old though, I think it's more of a collectible than a keeper. I did find a couple of these that have sold on eBay. Brought a few bucks. This one's got the original box, which might help it from a collector's point of view, I guess. This next item is pretty unusual. I just kind of thought it looked really cool. It was clearly old. Just the quality of the casting of this iron or forging, whatever it is. The brass. It's got the star wheel. So it's pretty easy to figure out what this is because there is a patent date of December 25th, 83. Just one look at the age tells me that they're talking about 1883. And December 25th being Christmas Day, I kind of figured there weren't too many patents issued on Christmas Day in 1883, and I was correct. It's a short list I had to go through to find a patent issued to Mr. J. Gillespie. I forget what his first name is, but it corresponds with the name on the front of the dial here, J. Gillespie. And Mr. Gillespie applied for a patent for an improved device for measuring distance, and the classification that they gave it at the patent office was under odometers and pedometers. And then I read the entire patent, and from the description, it appears that the way this is supposed to work is this rounded area right here via this clamp is supposed to be clamped over an axle, and then the axle would have a pin, a wheel on it, and that hub of that wheel would have a pin. And what would happen is the idea would be that every time the pin came by on the hub and made a revolution, it would engage this star wheel and kick it over one division like so. And then, according to the patent, this was supposed to end up working out to be precisely enough revolutions to make this dial, the small dial, go around one full revolution. That was supposed to be 1 mile. And then at each mile, when it came all the way around, it was supposed to sound this bell that's hidden back here. So kind of neat. Also, the patent talks about that the design is such that the, I believe it's supposed to only go in one direction. In other words, I think there was some provision that if the carriage backed up, that the odometer wouldn't undo the mileage that was already recorded. But it seems like no matter which direction I turn this, it actually does move the needle. So that doesn't seem to be working correctly. Judging from the numbers that appear to increase in a clockwise fashion, I think that clockwise is the way it's supposed to normally go. So theoretically, if I made this thing go around enough times, the bell should sound. So let me see if I can rig something up on my cordless drill just for the heck of it to see if I can't spin this thing a little more efficiently. I just bent this piece of copper wire into a hook, and I should be able to come in from the back side here and hook it. There we go. Alright, I give up. Well, clearly for every revolution of the large hand, one of the secondary hands advances one segment. The bell never seems to sound, which means there's either something wrong with the mechanism, or the bell's not supposed to sound until the other hand makes a full revolution, which that'll take forever, because that one only advances one segment or one division after this one makes a full revolution, which doesn't happen until this one makes a whole bunch of revolutions. So either this guy licensed this patent to somebody or his idea is not that original. Here is a early advertisement in a magazine or newspaper for what is described here as a bell odometer. It says, if you own a good horse and carriage, you will be interested in our bell odometer. It will tell you honestly how many miles you drive and announce each mile by stroke of a bell. Keeps a record for 100 miles and then repeats. Speed horses may be timed very accurately. Fully warranted. Price by mail $5. In ordering, send height of rear wheel. Davis Stebbins and Company, 33 Sudbury Street, Boston, Mass. Here's another photograph of one mounted on a axle. So you can see just that strap part mounts it to the axle, and then the star wheel engages, I guess, a pin or something on that hub. Here's another advertisement for one of these. The improved, applied to your automobile or carriage bell odometer will give you the exact distance traveled and announce each mile passed by the stroke of a bell. Send for description of something circular. The SM Davis and Company, Portland, Sudbury Street, Boston, Mass. And as far as the value of something like this goes, who knows? I mean, couldn't find one on eBay. So I guess the Romans, there was a Roman way back who was credited with like inventing the odometer. It was a very crude very crude mechanism, and there's even some question as to whether or not it was actually ever made, or whether or not, you know, they just found plans for it. It was never actually produced. And then a couple other guys gave it a shot, and then I guess Ben Franklin actually invented one of the first practical, usable carriage odometers. And I guess it had to do with when he was working out most efficient routes for the post office, the postal service. Anyways, let's move on. So now we got one more unusual antique item, and then there were two other machinist items that were tucked in those drawers that I got. We'll get to that in a moment, but first let's look at this other unusual item. I've never seen anything like this before. So it's a little tiny bench vise. So unfortunately somebody screwed it to this block of wood and then lacquered the heck out of it. And if I try and take that lacquer off, it will probably remove any of the original paint that is left underneath there. So I just about had given up on identifying this vise, and then I stumbled upon, by Googling small vices or miniature vices and looking at images, I stumbled upon this photograph of a George Colton vise, and noticed that where this was marked was on this area right here. So by taking my vise apart, this was really filthy in here, and cleaning this with a toothbrush and a little bit of solvent, I was able to expose that area. So located in the same location as that George Colton vise, on my vise there's no patent date, it just says patent applied for. So that might just mean that it predates being patented. Now it could just be some other vise manufacturer altogether and have nothing to do with George Colton. Now you can tell from the picture that this vise in this picture is much larger. And the description actually says a 10-pound. There's a few. There's also several different mounting styles. Here's what's described as an early Colton handheld 1-inch jaw vise. So all of the initial pictures I found on the internet of George Colton vices showed a flat area on the back here with an anvil point coming out, almost like a combination anvil vise. So that made me wonder whether or not I was barking up the wrong tree, you know, for other than the location of where the patent information is. Maybe it wasn't. But then, as luck would have it, I stumbled upon this patent photograph. And at the top you can see G.A. Colton. So this is a George Colton patent and the patent number. And you can clearly see that other than the mounting, the base, that this is very similar to the one I have here. So the value on these little George Colton vices seems to be all over the place. I think the only way to find out what it's worth is probably going to be to put it on a site like eBay or something and hope for the best. And now we come to the last two items in this particular pick, and I spotted these two plastic cases in one of the drawers, and thought I had purchased all of the machinist tools, and I think she even forgot that these were in there. So the boxes aren't original, but the labels appear to have been put on here to denote what was being stored in these things. So this says Micromaster Setmaster. And what's in here is something I've never seen before. It's kind of neat. And what this is a specially made gauge for testing the wear of the lead screw on micrometers. See, it says micrometer lead check, and what you've got is you've got all of these precision ground diameters, and they're all labeled. So starting at 1 inch, they go down in size all the way down to 100 thousandths. And this little pin right here is the 100 thou. It actually sits in the top there. So for whatever reason, I don't know if it's to make sure that doesn't get broken off, but that pin is removed and stored separately. But it's pretty cool. So why do you need one of these? Well, you think about a micrometer, and let's take a really ancient one like this, for instance. Okay, so we could set this micrometer. Could use a micrometer wrench, turn the thimble, and zero this micrometer out when it's fully closed. And we might put a gauge block in there of 100 thousandths, and it might be fine. But then maybe at 200 thousandths, you put a gauge block in, and it's a little bit off. And then maybe at 300 thousandths, it's more out of spec, and continues to get that way. Well, how would that happen? Well, I think the theory behind it would be that this basically operates, it's a screw, right? The thimble is screwing in. So there are threads that we have to contend with. And over time, the threads can wear. And I believe that when you close down on something, that backlash, if you will, in those threads is going to cause that stem to move a little bit and cause a problem. So to really accurately check a micrometer, you can't just rely on putting one size in there and taking a measurement. You use something more like this. So this is more like for a shop that is testing and calibrating micrometers. And then the other box has an even neater doohickey. This one is a Vernier dial caliper Setmaster. This is a little bit more involved. It's got some heft to it. Whereas this almost appears to be made out of mild steel or something. This seems more substantial. And what this is a master check for dial calipers or verniers. Same principle. If there's wear in the rack on the vernier, if there's wear in the rack on a dial caliper, for instance, you might have a problem where at different, the further you open it, that the greater the error becomes. So this is a way to actually test it. So this is a precision ground, probably lapped surface. So we could take our caliper and we could go right here and take a measurement, and it should be exactly 1 inch. Notice what it says there. It's 1.0000, and this is the same. I think this is the same company. Yeah, Glastonbury gauge. So so the next one up is 2 inches, and you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, why is that so skinny? Well, it's because you're always going to go from this surface to a surface on the left if I hold it this way. So we would have from here to here is 1 inch. From here to here is 2 inches. And then I guess here to here is 3, 4, 5, all the way out to 6 inches. So pretty cool. Yeah, I actually thought these weren't the original cases for these because they say Melmat on the bottom here. Melmat something of Harbor City, California. But I found some pictures online of some of the other Glastonbury gauge devices, and I saw a couple of them that had the same exact case. So I think Melmat's actually the name of the manufacturer of this case. So I haven't decided yet what I'm going to do with these. There's one, the Micrometer check, there's one of these online right now on eBay. They're asking 60 or best offer for it. And the Master Vernier or Caliper check here looks like one of these somebody was asking $80 for, and they accepted a best offer. I'm not sure who knows how much they ended up taking for it. So not a huge amount of value there. Somebody scored a really great deal on a listing where they didn't do a really good job of explaining what it was or photographing it or miscategorized it or something, because somebody scored one of these for 11 bucks. All right, so that's going to conclude this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please hit the like button, and if you're not already a subscriber, please consider subscribing. Take care.